Hi and welcome to another video in the Lightning Talk series of my blog. It's April 26th, 2 days after R40 got released. Very exciting, lots of changes in there, lots of work done by a lot of people to get those changes into R and the 15,000 packages prepared for it, so upgrades are generally smooth. But I saw some posts and rumbling on social media that suggested the opposite, so I just thought it might help to show a quick little example live to see how simple the update is. I'm doing this on my particular workstation. It's a reasonably beefy machine, so I have a lot of packages here, so this will take a moment. So while I talk through the other slides, we'll be running this in parallel, and I'll come back to this command. This first command basically just points my machine and its package management system to a particular personal package archive, PPA. That's an Ubuntu special. Everybody can set these up. This one's in my name and set up for R40. So it only contains R40 and the recommended packages built for it. And now that it's in there, and my machine was otherwise current, so the delta, the new packages are really just these, I'm just going to let it upgrade these packages. So it is doing this now. We'll see that all these package versions have a 1910 in there. They're fresh packages prepared for this, and they include R40. So currently the machine is still running 363, and in a moment we'll have 40. You'll see the messages going on here. So what's going on? It's it's R40, bit of noise out there that I thought there's somewhere the line just flew by saying that R363 to 40 got upgraded. That helped to clarify just how straightforward this is with a simple example on my live machine. So I did this yesterday on my laptop just to test. It took about 70 minutes for 500 or so packages. This is a bigger machine on which I actually do work, so more is installed. It's also a slightly larger machine, so it will probably also take an hour or so. So we'll pause this video and then come back to it. But I'll record the steps. Concretely, this is Ubuntu 1910. I haven't upgraded to 2004 yet. I usually wait a month or two to get some bugs sorted out there, because I don't follow Ubuntu as closely as I follow CRAN. I trust that and R and know a little bit more about the latter R that is than CRAN, so that I can follow the update right away. My machine is also current with CRAN because I update pretty much daily, so all the build dependencies are there. So just as a word of caution, don't break your machine. I mean, if you don't know what the commands are doing, or if you're unclear, don't try it. Have backups. Do this if you're reasonably familiar with the underlying commands and have a feeling that you know and understand what they're doing. This is borderline getting into system administration. Sometimes as power users we have to take care of our machines. So if you can test it, do test it. But I just trust this process quite a bit because I follow it closely. I know some of the people that are doing it, and just am aware of a lot of the detailed work that goes in there and the testing mechanisms. CRAN gets a bit of a hard rap sometimes for the extreme quality control that it does, but the success, I think, really justifies this. The tool's just installed, as we'll hopefully see in just a second. Again, the example is particular to Ubuntu and Debian. That doesn't really apply as is to Windows and binary packages. There you have to see which have been built or not. That may lag a little, and it's also not Mac specific or specific to other Linux distros. It also doesn't talk about Michael's excellent CRAN to for Ubuntu PPAs with over 4,000 binaries. Those will need time to get rebuilt. That hasn't happened. So this one is a concrete example of upgrading R itself and the R recommended binaries. Everything else comes from source. So we're basically doing what Chris Long described in this tweet yesterday, using the PPA and then using R's package updater. What are some of the key commands that go in there? Well, we'll show that in just a second, and I'm just going to turn the next command on while we're catching up with the so now we're in a shiny R400, and we are going to update packages, particularly to this directory. There aren't really any others, but just it doesn't hurt to be specific. Check build is important. In case of a tie, we want to update packages because R asks us to update all packages for the new version, and we don't want to be prompted, so that just goes off. So now it's syncing, and then it just goes and it's going to heat up the broadband wires because it has to download all these source packages while we go over the other slides. So what is there? Key functions really are available packages. You can use this function with your list of known repos to get an inventory of all the packages, versions, dependencies that are out there. And you can combine that with installed.packages, which tells you which packages your machine currently have. Then you can compare them pairwise. So for package ABC, the versions out there may be 1.2.3 and 1.2.4. So then you'll know that you have a newer version available, and it goes in. That is in a nutshell what update packages does for you, the function that we invoked here to update all of our packages. Update packages and install.packages, which one uses to install one or more packages, are really quite powerful, wonderful, widely used. One useful trick of something that I do every now and then, or that I've said in my startup files in particular, is to setting n CPUs, because when an installation or an upgrade involves more than one package, as in this case with 600, you probably want to do those as much in parallel as you can, rather than sequentially. So even on a daily update, when maybe 5 new versions are out there for the 600 CRUN package that I have, the 5 of them will install in parallel, thanks to the use of n CPUs, an option that update packages responds to and reflects. So key commands, something that I've done here to prepare the update on an Debian-based system like Ubuntu. Sudo apt-update updates the indices, and sudo dist upgrade pulls all packages forward to the newest available versions in that release. Similarly, I often run a front-end wrapper script on the shell called update.r from my littler package. It just invokes update.packages with a bunch of options. And then the next 2 steps, which we saw right at the beginning of this short little video, were invoking add-apt repository as the super user so that we can write a system file with an option yes to not get prompted do you want to upgrade, for the particular PPA, in this case with the name EDD, in the user account EDD and the repo R-40, and then to that involves an index update and update automatically, and we then also tell it to upgrade and bring all those versions forward. And then the last and really key command that's currently running and that is still downloading files for us is rscript, if you want to do it on the command line, or R directly, which is what we had done here. Either one works. I do a lot of things on the command line, but some of those commands then I drop into an R shell for. So now we're getting close to having all those packages downloaded so that the actual compilation can start. As I said, around 680 packages affected. Of these, maybe 600 or so will come from CRAN, probably 40-50 from GitHub. I often clone repos and then install them locally rather than invoking remote. Sometimes I do that too. There's a little wrapper for that as well. Those packages are not tied to a meta index, so they will not get updated. So I will have to look at those after the fact by looking at the directories that have not been affected. That's one of the many reasons why some of us prefer CRAN rather than GitHub, just because the whole process works better together. And here we see the effect now of NCPU set to all the cores that I have on my machine, because it immediately went into 12. So this will now go for a little bit, and I'm going to pause the video in just a second, then we'll come back to it later. But we were just saying sort of many packages CRAN, some GitHub that will involve just manual follow-up and work. That includes packages not yet published, or whichever other than ones that may involve, including the one that I do in my day job. And as well as some Bioconductor packages. I have some as well, and we'll get to that in just a second. And I have one more slide on that, because as Bioconductor follows the R releases, but not on the same day, the current Bioconductor release is still tagged to the now previous R release 3.6.3, so we'll then have to go in and manually update the BioBase package, and we'll probably do that once we come back after the break. So this will now churn over the 600 packages, and I'm going to pause the video now for a second, and we'll come back later when this has succeeded. So let's resume our investigation into the upgrade. I actually had a quick bite to eat in the meantime. The whole process on this bigger machine only took about 20 minutes, but as we can see, a number of packages failed, and there's certainly some well-known packages in here that are also in a dependency relationship. So let's just see, if we run it one more time, what happens with these. Sometimes for dependencies, the system library may get uninstalled by Ubuntu, because the Ubuntu package management system would not know that a locally built CRAN package depends on a particular header library. So that makes some of them go, oh, there we have an immediate error as well as a success mark. So with that, I'm actually going to turn NCPUs down a little, because this is too much for debugging. So let's just see again what happens, and we can also of course pick individual ones out of the list of failed ones and then debug them. With that, I didn't even get to the Bioconductor step, so I will now have to locally work through this and see what's up. This had not happened to me yesterday on the laptop, but such is life. Sometimes these things happen, and then you just have to debug them. With pre-built binary packages, of course, it's a little safer, but because we're so early in the process, the binaries on Linux for R4.0 are just not there yet, so we can't quite do that. So let's see what happens here. For ZMQ, I have the suspicion that a system level dependency, a library is not present, so we'll have to look into that. But yes, that I think had happened to me once before yesterday. There's something circular between package load and test that prevents this from working. So I'm just going to get out of R now for a second and just force the local install of test then and see if that succeeds. That worked, so let's do the same then with package load. See, and now outside of the shell, it worked for both cases. That's an interesting illustration of why I often prefer to work on the shell rather than in the session, because the loaded packages may not get replaced cleanly. With that out of the way, let's just see what happens if we now reassume. Of course, the download counts for these packages will get majorly inflated, but given that these two packages, or particularly package load, may have been involved for some of the other ones, by now a larger percentage of these may succeed. Yeah, so for example, linter just worked. There's a PDB still is icky, but again, that we can take that apart. Ubuntu may have done me the favor of uninstalling the 0MQ dependency headers, so that a from source build cannot succeed. But see now, Roxygen worked, DevTools worked. So I guess in the seamless upgrade we had one snafu with package load and test that, but with that out of the way, it seems to be working just fine. So I'm going to pause this now for another, for a second time. We'll come back when it has concluded in that. Okay, resuming one more time. So this had now concluded. PBD ZMQ in fact was failing over what looked like a compiler issue. That can happen. This is Ubuntu 19.10 with a reasonably new compiler. The error I saw came from building the ZMQ library as embedded, so I simply reinstalled the system library and then it installed without a hitch, so that's there. I'm not quite clear what's happening with IR kernel. Maybe we'll see that in a second. And NMF has to do with Bioconductor, so we'll as it says here, sort of it's related to BioBase. So with that, let's roll over to this. Let's install or reinstall BioC Manager. And with BioC Manager, upgrade Bioconductor to devel, as the documentation suggests. And so I have 12 packages installed. And those come from a different source with its own front-end package, the BioC Manager, rather than AS Package Manager. So we're doing that in a separate build and compilation step, but all these seem to be moving on along quite nicely. And based on the experience with the laptop, NMF will also update once these requirements of current Bioconductor packages that are loadable for R40 is met. So that really concludes it. I'll look into IR kernel. It'll be something similar, probably with the development header, but by and large, updating, if you have a reasonable handle on your system, understand the pre-requirements, is really not a big deal, and why we are in favor of doing that. I'm not a proponent of keeping everything in virtual environments, packrats, renv. Just keep your system sane and simple, and then everything generally just works the right way. So here's another one that may have a system level dependency that we need to look at. But again, by and large, I think this works, and there shouldn't be much fear. For particular questions related to R on Debian or Ubuntu systems, come to the ASIC Devil list, which is quite helpful. Let's try this one more time. Yep, and with that, one last package goes through as well. So that takes care of that. Leaves us with the IR kernel and the that one Bioconductor package that had a hiccup. So that's really not so bad. And then of course there will be some other packages that came from GitHub that are local, that don't benefit from the testing that current packages get. So there may be some more work there, and that's again something that you as a user and admin of your machine will need to take into consideration. as to whether you want to update or not. For me, I know that all the packages that matter come from CRAN or have a good handle on the GitHub repos and can reinstall them as needed. So with that, for me, really not a big deal, and really looking forward to taking advantage of all the new exciting things in R4.0. That's it. A couple further pointers. Thanks for listening in.